Woody, hello, welcome.
Hello,
How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, very well, thank you. It's lovely to see you here and in your England kit again. How good did it feel just to get that kit on and come to a test match ground?
Oh, amazing. Like, even just the amount of times I've had to bowl at Durham just to the net and walk down, pick my ball up and walk back. It was lovely to have a bit of an atmosphere on the ground, a bit of a crowd in. I'm glad I got it done this morning, like, not now, because
definitely.
I mean, I would never have gotten it in, but it was nice to sort of sample a bit of atmosphere, and it's lovely to be back with the team in and around the dressing room. It was very kind of Stokesy and Brendan McCullum to invite me in and be around the squad, so nice to have the England kit. I'm showing off a little bit here, aren't I, with you, with me kit on. I should have really gotten changed.
No, I think we quite like the kit look. You know, I mean, we don't have a TMS uniform as such, so you know, you are part of the England squad today, and
right, okay.
You know, but maybe tomorrow when you come in, we'll put you in something casual. But just remind everyone, I know you chatted to Aggers at the start of the day, but quite a while ago now. Just remind everyone where you're at exactly injury-wise, when the last sort of surgery was, and where you're at now.
So we got to a crunch period really where I had to play club cricket. Was the only time I could get a game. I played for Ashington, my local club, and the next day I couldn't straighten my arm again. Was just, you know, dead swollen and sore, and obviously still a bit of an issue with my arm. I'd built it up for weeks, needed it strapped and other things, and then had the second surgery done. Luckily this time they found more bone fragments and a little tear in my ligament, which the surgeon just took off. And whereas previously it had maybe took me 8-9 weeks to build up, I was back off my full run this time after 3 weeks, no strapping on my arm, feel much better. I feel like this time it's done the trick, and was bowling, you know, flat out this morning off my full run up. I just feel in a much better place. I think it's, you know, when you're pushing it through injury, or when it still doesn't quite feel right, you're always thinking, come on, just get through it, it'll get better, and it just never really did. But this time I can honestly say that, you know, coming back, it's been a lot easier, and it's made a big difference. So this morning felt great to run in front of the lads as well. I didn't bowl with them, but to run in front of them and a few of them to say you're looking good and things like that, you know, right, meant a lot. So hopefully I can continue on that trend for Pakistan, which is my next cricket. I mean, it's been a long time. It was the West Indies in March was my last game, so it's been a long time. But if I can build up to maybe, you know, 2 or 3, 4 games in Pakistan out of 7, lead into the Australia warm-up games and then into the World Cup, hopefully I'll be flying by then.
Yep, crossing all fingers for that, for sure. It always amazes me how you guys, as sportsmen and women, just go through surgeries. And you've had so many of them, but you know, some people go through life not needing to go on an operating table at all, or a general anaesthetic.
Yeah, it's like a coffee thing. I've had them all stamped now. I'll get the next one for free. I've had that many.
Where was it, the most recent one where the video went on social media of you coming round from your general anaesthetic?
Yeah, that was the first elbow operation. Yeah, so I've had 2 of them, but that was the first one. I told the physio this time, look, the second time round, you can't do that again. It was just
it was
too
very
embarrassing.
Yeah. But you were the one who put it out there, wasn't it? He filmed it obviously without you knowing.
Yeah.
But then when you saw it,
yeah, I thought, well, it's a bit of fun, wasn't it? You could obviously see my reaction and things was a bit. I mean, it's on my Instagram and stuff if people want to look. But I couldn't remember a thing really, and it wasn't until I came round later and he showed us, I thought, oh, a bit of fun, I'll put it on there. I mean, this time round apparently I was just as bad, but because I'd banned him from videoing me. It didn't get out there.
You say bad or funny, I think is the phrase. Look, in the recent time as well, you've managed to put a book out.
That's
The
right.
Wood Life.
The Wood Life,
yes.
Yeah. I mean, it's a spoof sort of self-help book, in a way, just through creating stories and things. I think originally I tried to get the wood, the bad and the ugly, but they wouldn't take that. Knock on wood, that was one as well, but they wouldn't take that one. They've settled for the Wood Life, which is obviously fits in well with the self-help book, and it's just, you know, I think it comes out on the 15th. You can pre-order it and stuff now, but I really enjoyed doing it. It was a lot of fun, and a light-hearted way of looking at things. Really, it wasn't, as you can tell, it's probably not that serious. If you look at the picture on the front, I mean, I'm sporting sort of like an eyebrow raise and things like that. So it's just it was, you know, from start to finish. We took over probably 3-4 months to do it. So it wasn't like I was doing it every day, but 3 or 4 months to do it, and we broke it down into chapters: how to bowl fast, or how to be fast, how to love, how to kill time, and all this different.
I thought that
stuff.
chapter heading was particularly appropriate for today.
Yeah, exactly.
Watching the rain.
So all just sort of spoof ways and through my stories of playing abroad, with England, growing up in Ashington, all those kind of things. How you might need some help through my advice or guidance, I guess.
I like it. It's sort of a tongue-in-cheek self-help book, but
Yeah.
you do. There are a lot of genuine messages which come out through it. But the treatment of it's not just your straightforward autobiography, because also as you read your story, there are interjections throughout the book. Some from your England teammates, some from your mates back home, who form a really central part to the book, which is just lovely, and it speaks volumes about it seems to be a central theme. It's just how much home and where you come from, how much that means to you.
Absolutely. That'll always be a part of who I am, and I'll never forget, that I grew up 50 yards away from Ashington Cricket Club, and some of my best friends who talk in the book, some of them still play there, some of them still go there. Joss Butler's spoken at Joe Root, Ben Stokes has done the foreword, so we've got some. I think even Michael Holden, he speaks in it as well, so it's brilliant that we've got this amount of, different people, values, spectrum, everything. It's all different people from different backgrounds, and it's all nice into the book that it interjects, like you say. So there'll be something that I would say, and then someone will cut that off with a story.
Hang on a minute,
where I've said something completely different. So it fits in really nicely, actually.
Yeah. Tell me then about your upbringing in Ashington and where cricket started for you, and who you were surrounded by at that time.
Yeah. So a lot of my time was football in the winter and cricket in the summer. I enjoyed all sports and things. I think Ashington's a big sporting area. We have a lot of, Stephen Harmison, obviously, which everyone will know from a cricketing sense. John Inchmore, who I think played for Worcester. He is from Ashington as well. And then we've got people like Michael Oliver, who's a current Premier League referee. Jackie Milburn, Bobby Charlton, Jackie Charlton. These are all sort of big names in the sporting world. And, to come from a tiny mining town in Northumberland to have big names like that is pretty special. So nice that I can be added to that list as people that's played for England or played professional sport. There's other people from there, so I think sport's a huge thing in the area. It gives people purpose, or it gives them something to strive for, believe in, or watching a weekend when they're working so hard. It was a mining community, so often people would go down the pits and down the mines, and then sport formed communities, clubs, and that's how this sort of town developed, really. Is there
any mining sort of history in your particular family?
Yes, both my granddads were miners, and my great granddads, they'd have been miners as well. I actually say in the book, one of the things that the question is, name something that you would like to do for a day or a job. So I'd like to have had a go at being a miner for a day, and the next question was, what would you hate to have done? And it was also being a miner.
Yeah, understandably.
So I think that hard work and tough life, I guess, stood me in good stead in terms of the values I've been brought up on around Ashington and things like that. But I definitely don't think I could have done it long term. They've still got one of the museums there, Woodhorn Museum, and my wife and my son went there recently. And you can go in the old sort of shaft, and you stand there, and it's as if it drops you down and things like that. I said to my wife, I don't know if I could have done this.
That's remarkable, isn't it, when you think about it?
Yeah.
So your friends, a couple of them in particular, play a crucial part in the book, or a thread throughout. Just give us their names, and also tell us about the times that you have snuck them into the England dressing room, because there's some very funny stories about about some of the times because everyone knows sort of family often get invited into dressing rooms, but actually your friends are almost sort of become, or are your family just as much,
they're central to the book, they're central to my life. So actually at this ground at the Oval, we won the Ashes in 2015, and they were sat up here. Family and friends come across to the dressing room on the other side, and they can come in to just spend a bit of time. Most families are on the outfield. Of course, mine have gone straight into the dressing room, and my best friend Scott Dunn, Johnny Story, Josh Robinson and Glenn Taylor. Glenn Taylor, I think, he's still plays a good level of football. He plays centre forward for Spennymoor.
They're going to have entered folklore after this book has been widely distributed.
So they come in the dressing room, and they're trying on all the kit. I think they had Rooty's kit on head to toe. They were trying to get...
How did he take that?
Okay at the time, actually. I think he was a bit like, who are these guys? But
who do they belong to?
Yeah. Alistair Cook, they were trying to get him to come play a third team match for Ashington. Alistair Cook, I think, actually agreed at the time.
I was going to say, he's the kind of guy who'd probably say yes.
Yeah, I think he sort of batted them. Oh, yes, of course, I'll play. When really behind the scenes thinking, absolutely no chance of us spend any more time with these guys. And then, you let them go for a little bit. Look, lads, calm down. Just relax a bit, enjoy yourself, but let's just make sure that we're not the centre of attention. So things had quietened down for a little bit, and then Paul Fabris had pulled me to one side and said, are those your mates drinking the Veuve Clicquot champagne and smoking the cigars in the showers? And I looked across and they were actually in the ice bath. And I was like, oh my God, I cannot believe it. What are they doing? So I had to pull them into one side.
On their own in the ice bath? Or?
Yeah, all three of them celebrating, spraying the champagne. I was like, they had won the Ashes as well, but that's part of it. You know, your friends and your family, they go through everything with you. So it was nice that they could share that moment with me, and they were fantastic. I think they've still, even from 2015, they've still got the recording on of when they were videoed going up the steps at the Oval. I still haven't forgiven one of my best friends, Johnny Story. I think he got pictures with every member of the Australian squad. I was like, mate, play it cool, man. Play it cool, will you? But
for them, they're absolutely living, they're living your best life and thinking, this is an experience that we're not going to have again.
Well, it was great for we all to share together. Like I said, it was the same when we won the World Cup. You know, I spent time with my best friends and stuff there. And I think to have your family and your best friends watching you, sometimes it can be stressful sorting all the tickets out, but it's amazing that they get to come to these places, see these venues, and see international cricket close up and meet all the players and everything like that. And like I mentioned to you on the podcast the other day.
Yeah, you've been on BBC Stumped, so you can hear more from Woody on the book as well on the podcast when that comes out tomorrow.
And Stokesy knows my friends just as well as I do now, so it's nice that they've gotten that rapport with the other lads.
Yeah, there's lots of funny stories throughout the book, but it is sort of peppered with genuine, and it's your voice that comes through with this sort of authenticity. But a really beautiful line early on in the book where you say, whenever you play a match for England, you're treating your mum and dad. And that is that idea of, you wouldn't be here without them. You want to be able to share with those who are closest to you.
Absolutely, and that's 100% right. I wouldn't be here without them. They've helped me be the person that I am and get me to this stage, and the sacrifices that they make, and it's all part of your journey. I mean, it was lovely this morning. I mentioned to Aggers that Harry Brooks' family got to go on the outfield with him. That's the first time I've ever experienced that. It's normally, you just get a presentation of another player, an ex-player, or coaching staff. So to actually have your family, you could see they were emotional and rightly so. And that was a lovely moment. And without my mum and dad, I wanted them to experience Lords. I want them to experience the Oval and all these fantastic places.
So have they been at most matches you've played in for England, would you say? Have they been able to travel?
Yeah, they've travelled a lot. Obviously, they haven't been everyone, but they've travelled to a few, especially in this country. I think they went to the West Indies tour as well, which was lovely for them. And I think they're hoping to come to Australia as well. So
have they tried to get in the dressing room and try Joe Root's kit on?
Not quite, not quite. I think they're a little bit more laid back than me mates, but. Like you say, it's as much a part for them as it is for you.
Yeah. One of the chapters of the book, you mentioned it, is how to kill time. And I mean, cricket, we know there is just so much time in the game, whether you're in the dressing room because everyone else is batting for a long period, or you're in the field for a long time. In your case, you'd be bowling, but then you're fielding as well. But when the rain falls and you've got hours and hours on end, I'm interested in the games that you list that you play in the dressing rooms, because sometimes in the TMS box we might need
Come on then,
need some of these. So you talk about guess the song. That sort of sounds quite self-explanatory. How does that one work?
Well, we've got the humming game. That's the most popular, I would say. So you have to hum a tune, and you have to guess obviously a point if you get it right. I mean, this sounds fairly simple when I say it on the radio, but it can get pretty in depth.
Does it?
Lads will go to deep extremes to get that point. You think that people would pick easy songs, but there's genres flying from all over the place and things like that. So,
and is it strictly humming, or could you whistle, or could Joe Root bring out his ukulele?
No, well, the humming game is strictly humming, but there has been instances where it's been a bit hard, so you might have to whistle or give a little clue and things like that. But we just played, cards on a day like this would be a day that you would do things like that, or you would kill time with a bit of one hand, one bounce in the dressing room. Even as 30-year-old blokes, that still runs true. I don't know if that's good or bad, or a bit sad actually, but you got to kill time somehow.
Totally. The other one was ABC.
The ABC game is the greatest game ever to grace a sheet of paper, I think.
Really?
Yes.
Well, so have to tell us
you
more.
have categories of boy, girl, animal, fruit and veg, place, type of car,
Body parts, I remember reading. You said was a particular favourite of yours.
Yeah,
I suppose you've had different
Well, I've
bits
had
of your body
I've had that many
on.
injuries so you would go through the alphabet. So you've got all these headings, and you'd go through the alphabet like go, and you would go A, B, C, D, E, F, G in your head. You could even go to Z and then start again, keep going. When I say stop, whatever letter. So if that's B, you'd have a boy's name again with B. So Barry, girls, Brenda, place, and you go through all your B's, and then you all write it down. The first one that finishes, you say, right, everybody else, you've got 30 seconds to a minute to finish. Everybody else finishes, and then you read out your answers. If you've got one that no one else has got, you get 10 points. If you've got something that someone else has got, you get 5 points. And if you haven't got anything, 0 points. But if you come up with a super duper answer, you get 15 points.
That nobody else has got.
Nobody else could even, not just a standard answer like it.
So who decides you get 50 points for it though? I mean, are you your
15.
own judge? Or?
So, well, no, the group in general will be like, okay. Oh, that's a 15-pointer.
15, sorry.
Yeah. So okay. That's and then you total it up the end, and then you keep going. Everyone has a go 2 or 3 times. So I would often part of body, that would be my niche, because I've had that many injuries that I would know all the. So it wouldn't be just your standard ankle. I could be like, go try going on that one.
Which is where?
At the back of the ankle, that one.
Right, yeah.
So
the metatarsal.
Yeah, so I'd get the old 15 points for that one, but that's where.
Are these games played, in the Wood household like at Christmas? Is this where they've come from?
Yeah, so when I was a kid growing up, this is something you do the old picnic tea on the floor, potato croquettes. If my mum had been to Marks and Spencer's for a posh shop, and then we'd play this game or other things on the floor just to pass the time when we're having a picky tea.
Yeah. No, it's all good stuff. I think we actually played that during the Commonwealth Games. There was a rain break there, the old ABC games.
It's a classic, isn't it?
It's a winner. It is a winner, classic. And you can just keep going for literally hours and hours, which is what you need on a day like this.
Exactly.
Chatting away to Mark Wood, 1:30, which is when the next pitch inspection was due here at the Oval. The covers are well and truly on. There are still umbrellas up around the ground, and it's still light, steady drizzle. So, things are not looking good, although the sky above is a little bit lighter, she says, leaning forward and then realising that actually there's still a heavy bank of grey cloud behind the stand that we're in, which moves over towards the pavilion, which is where the really heavy rain came from earlier on. And so walk us through from your upbringing in Ashington and playing club cricket then to moving to Durham, and also how your relationship with Ben Stokes has evolved in that time. When did you first meet Ben?
So growing up in Ashington, then I played for Northumberland, of course, because that would be my catchment area, my minor county, and then went from doing okay for Northumberland. Actually, the men's team as a 16-year-old, I played a couple of games. So Durham Academy started looking at me, went to Durham, and that was when I would have first come across Ben. I played actually against Stokesy for Ashington against Cockermouth as a kid, and probably didn't really realise it at the time. And it wasn't until later on we went, we actually played against each other, which was actually quite nice. But when I first got in the academy, Stokesy was, he'd been in for about a year. So it was nice that he could sort of, around my age, he could embed us in, and he made us feel welcome straight away. And we hit it off straight away. He was a nice guy and really liked him. And he was pretty special of a player. Even as a kid, he could whack it a long way and, bold and everything that you see now. He was pretty much exactly like that as a kid. So he was always very supportive. And like I'd mentioned there, he was a year ahead. When we were on my journey, he played for Durham before me, then he played for England before me. So when I came in the Durham team, I felt comfortable because it was someone I knew and someone I was close with. Similarly, when I went to the England team, someone I was close with and who had been there and done it. So I could sort of lean on him a little bit for advice, or if I felt nervous or anything like that. I remember the first England game I had, actually, when I bowled the no ball. And I got a wicket, would have been my first test wicket with the no ball. He actually pulled me one side and said, look, you've got to forget about it. Same thing happened to me. I did it. It's just your adrenaline you're flying through. Try and relax. Remember what you're doing. So, things like that, little snippets of that was really nice, and to lean on Ben. He's done the foreword for my book, which has been really nice. I think he says that I'm still like a 16-year-old, which I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
I think the phrase was he says you're either a 30-year-old going on 16 or a 16-year-old going on 30, and he's like, I don't know which one it is. Well, that's probably not a bad thing, maybe.
Yeah.
Accurate description?
He's probably right, yeah. I mean, it's lovely that he did the foreword, real honour for me that he would do that. And the guy I do my podcast with, Miles Jupp, he speaks in the book as well, and he speaks really nice, and he does the sort of bit at the end, and it's nice to have a different perspective from they're obviously two very different people, and you got Stokesy speaking at the start, and then Miles at the end, and it sort of wraps the book up lovely. But Stokesy, now when I was saying to Agas before, now when I hear him speak and think the way that he goes on now, I would never have thought that 10, 15 years ago when I first met him in the academy when he was at Durham. He's just grown up so much, and the way he speaks. And
this today is the first time you've sort of been with the group since obviously he was made Test captain and working with Brendan McCullum.
Yes, and blown away by, he's just grown and grown as a person throughout the last few years. And obviously he's got his documentary out, and he's doing, his Test match captain, he's doing really well. So I just think he's probably in a really great place, and he just seems like he's comfortable with who he is, comfortable with how he's trying to put things across. He's comfortable with the team and everything like that. So I think that certainly helps.
I mean, you know him so well. Was there anything in the documentary that surprised you?
Yeah, the main thing that surprised me was how unwell he looked when he was speaking to Sir Sam Mendes. He just looks vacant, like he's not there. And
you hadn't seen him in that period?
No, I hadn't seen him because he was playing in the 100. What was I doing? I would have been doing something else. And then when I then came back into the team, he wasn't there because he was unfortunately away with having a mental break. So I'd spoke to him a little bit on text message, asked about him, saw him at the Durham cricket ground, but he didn't look or seem to look as bad as what he did then. Unfortunately, you could just see he doesn't look like the same person. There's an answer where Sam asks him a question, and it takes him like what seems like 10 to 20 seconds just to say yeah, and that's all he says. And it's just like you're like, it just doesn't seem like him. When even if you see Stokesy and he does a TV answer, you can see like he's engaged and he's thinking about what he's got to say and things.
He's
like
someone
that.
who really listens to your question and gives you an answer to your question.
Absolutely. But there, he just seemed like he'd either heard part of it or nothing of it, and he just was just like, yeah. It was just sad to see, really, and of course sad to see the bit with his dad, because obviously that bit where his dad was on camera, that might actually be the last bit that he saw with his dad as well. That the bit where his dad was on camera. So it's just sad actually to think about your own parents like that, and my dad who supported me, and that wasn't nice. But that's what the documentary does. It gives you a balance of both sides, the highs and the lows, and one player or someone like myself might deal with one of those things throughout their career, injury or real downs. He's had to deal with 4 or 5 things, the highs of the biggest highs, the lows of the lowest lows. So it's just, to see him the way he is today, with being the captain and the way that he, I guess promotes himself and pushes himself to other people, is testament to him, really.
Yeah, it is an extraordinary script, which people would say it's made for the movies, and lo and behold, it has made for an incredible narrative across that film. Did you enjoy it? Yeah, and I found it, in many ways, because we are so close to a lot of the stories of you guys, but you sort of know what the narrative is, what the course of events are, put it like that. But yeah, so we don't also see...
Was he a bit more open? Because obviously if you're used to interviewing him or seeing him, you would get a certain, I guess, perception of him. Was how he was in the documentary different to the perception of how you would see him interviewing, or how you'd see him on the cricket field?
Certainly the interview with Sam Mendes, again, completely different person, sort of the blank eyes, which if you've known anyone who's gone through a really difficult mental health period, you can recognise. So that was very sort of deep and sort of concerning, but you felt real empathy to see that sort of up front. I think that the rest of it, you got a bit of insight. I think particularly him around his parents, you really saw the real Ben. But I think in interviews he is someone that has always come across quite genuinely.
Yeah.
So I think the bits that I learned that I didn't already know was him in New Zealand and him in Cockermouth and the home life, and just that insight, pulling back the curtain and seeing behind scenes at home, which we don't see so much with you guys.
Well, there's a bit in it where it's like, I think it's, is it called an unacceptable miss or something? It's at Durham, and they're doing a fielding drill. And I was part of that fielding drill, and I remember it. And every time Stokesy picks up the ball and he throws it, I remember the guy in the background saying, unacceptable miss. And I'm thinking, if he's getting an unacceptable miss, what must I have been getting there?
But he kept going and kept going and kept going until he got it.
I think it was, if I remember rightly, they put like the old PE crash mats.
Yes, yeah.
They put one of them at the back of the hole, and they had 2 sets of stumps, one at each side, and you had to attack the ball before a certain area, so as if you were getting to the ball, and then you had a little zone with the stump and maybe like almost like a target just above or below the stumps to hit as well. And if you hit the target, you got like acceptable miss, and if you hit the stumps, it was a hit or whatever. And like the pressure was on, they were marking everybody, so you're like competing against other lads in the academy, which in a way is what it's like. Really, you're a part of a team, but you're all competing for that contract, that professional deal, trying to push on into the first team, and you don't realise it at the time because you just think you're part of an academy side, you're playing to win the league, you're playing to beat the local teams, but actually you're competing against each other as well, even though they're your friends. And it just shows Ben there how hard he pushed himself. Even when he was missing, he never stopped. He was always striving to be the best, to be better. And that's how I actually remember him. It was like he was always gung-ho. And even now, when you watch him train, he's exactly the same. He doesn't do things by half. He has to be 100% committed, 100% full out. And like I say, when he was getting unacceptable miss, I was thinking, well, if he's getting that, what must I have been getting?
You have to have a certain element of...
Unless they just told me to sit down.
Yeah, take a break. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. You've got to have a certain element of sort of the selfish, maybe that's not the right word, sort of ruthlessness about you, because you are competing for your space, your spot, yet you are within a team, and these guys are your friends that, not necessarily you and Ben competing for the same spot, but, fellow fast bowlers, and it's quite something to manage. But in order to be a professional sports person...
You're totally right, but I think it's a fine line as well, because if you're a selfish player, then that would be picked up, I think,
and that doesn't really work in a cricket environment.
Yeah, it doesn't work in a cricket environment, and people would hold that against you going forward, or like he's not putting the team first, or I mean, you think of a lot of the team cultures now, it's all about team first, and Ben's one of them, absolutely. You can look at his stats to probably say that, whereas people think, well, his stats should be even better for how good a player he is, but at times he's, slogged with the tail and tried to get in a good position, or he's, sacrificed his wicket to push the score on, or whatever it may be. So I think if you're purely, I agree with you. I don't know if selfish is the right word or not, but you've got to have a certain inner drive and inner belief, focus that you want to become a professional cricketer. But at the same time, if you're selfish and only focus on yourself and not help others and not be part of that team, then you know what it's like. If I'm a fast bowler and I'm bowling with the other guy and I'm only concentrating on myself, I'm not helping the guy at the other end, because you're bowling in a partnership. You're trying to build pressure. You're trying to keep the batters. If they're free scoring at one end and it's not helping the guy at the other, because then they can relax a bit more. Whereas if you've both got it tight, often I think the good Australian team, didn't they have a thing where they said 3 overs, if they can bowl 3 maidens in a row, then the 4th over that nearly always guarantees a wicket.
So you're bowling as a unit, aren't you?
So that focusing on being part of that team, I think people would want players that aren't necessarily going to bat. I suppose in one-day cricket, that's probably the best way to look at it now. The amount of teams now that if you get 100 in one-day cricket off 150 balls or 120 to 150 balls, people might think, oh, well, you've not pushed on to help the team here, you've batted for your own score. Whereas you look at someone like, because it's very poignant at the minute, but someone like a Jason Roy, he will get us off to a flyer. Now, he might only get 30, 20, 40, but he's setting the tone for everybody else in a very unselfish manner, where he takes on the opposition, he takes on everybody else to then help and put the team first. So I think there's different ways to look at it, really.
Yeah, I feel like this is probably points towards your book and a sort of life advice kind of conversations, doesn't it? In that, if you can lift others up around you as you're moving forward, everyone will
That would be
advance.
The most serious part of the book, that, if I just said something like that. So, yeah.
Well, we should sort of turn back to some more of the advice you give in the book, because you roam through everything from, say, the cricketing advice through to how to give a good best man speech,
That's
of which
right.
You've had to deliver a few in your time, haven't you?
Yeah, I've done 3, I think. 1 for a guy in Australia when unfortunately I couldn't go, and then 2 for like the 2 lads I'd mentioned that were here at the Oval.
Still open for bookings?
I guess so. I mean, it's good fun. It's good. In the book, I give a little, I think, antidote of how you could go about it. But everybody's different, aren't they? It's just all about having a laugh, not taking yourself too seriously, I guess.
Start strongly, finish strongly.
Yeah,
The stuff
always
in the
remember
middle
the
is less
toast.
remembered.
I always remember the toast. I reckon there's a bit in there, how to love as well, and I say like how me and Sarah came together and how I proposed to her and things like that, because well, I'll tell you, but
Yeah.
it was me. So Sarah always liked this commercial, believe it or not. It was actually a Wrigley's Gum Extra commercial.
Right.
And what happens in the commercial is that obviously they go through these life events, and when they're doing it, they'll have a stick of chewing gum. And when they do it, the guy draws a picture of what event they've done, whether it's... So what I did with Sarah was I got someone to draw these pictures of things that were done, James Bay concert, other things that were done riding through bikes in Hyde Park, things that we'd done in our sort of relationship together. And then when you get to the last one, the last picture is you on one knee and you're holding the ring, and then she opens the door, and that was what I actually
it's like
did.
some sort of treasure hunt.
Yeah, exactly. And I copied that. And when people ask me now, they say, "No, how did you do?" And I say, "Well, actually, I copied a chewing gum commercial." They're like, "That must have been the worst proposal anyone's ever." So
Clearly went down well.
yeah, but it went down well. Yeah, it worked.
We're watching the rainfall still here at the Oval. We're going to keep chatting to Mark Wood for a little bit longer here. An inspection was due at 1:30, but it's still raining, so no inspection. The fourth umpire's just out there at the moment, but absolutely no movement on the covers whatsoever. Woody, if I was to turn things around then, I asked you before, when you watched the Ben Stokes documentary, what surprised you about that? I mean, a lot of the book is joshing in its stories and taking you through lots of fun stuff. But is there anything in the book that you think someone like Ben Stokes, who knows you very well, might be surprised at? Or has he had his chance to have his... because of these interjections, has he had his chance to have his say?
Yeah,
if there's anything you didn't know?
The one that really made me laugh a lot, because obviously I don't see the interjections until... I've seen them now, obviously, because of the book, but Vish, who wrote the book, would often speak to the lads, sometimes with me on, sometimes without me on, and then he would document things. And
This is Vitushan Hantaraja who's done it with you.
So basically he would document things. So you imagine you've got a dialogue of, I don't know, 5 to 10 minutes with somebody, and he would go, right, that bit will fit into How to Kill Time, bit will fit into How to Love, that bit will fit into...
So he's categorising.
Yeah. So he's like putting little bits in, and there was a little bit from Chris Wokes on, I think we talk about how I don't like flying. I've got a fear of flying, like a little bit. I don't like it.
Which is not great when you're an international cricketer and there's lots of flights to get.
Wokesy had mentioned that because he sits next to me every flight with being WO and I'm WO. Wokes, Woodward, we're next to each other all the time on the plane, and he says, I've noticed the amount of times Woody wears his sunglasses on the flight, and I didn't even realise I did that, and then when he says it in the book, I'm like, I do that every time.
Why?
I don't know. But he's right.
But is that linked to your fear of flying?
I don't know. But he says, well, he always sits there. He's nervous with his game, and he wears his sunglasses. Maybe I think it's like a disguise. I'm disguising myself with my sunglasses on. It's not really me. That's got the guy of fear of flying. But
well, a member of our team doesn't particularly like, well, I wouldn't say flying itself, the landings in particular. I don't know whether I should name him or not. No, it's not. It's not Adam who's sitting behind us, but I have sat next to Simon Mann on a few inbound flights where you suddenly feel the arm rest between you sort of being like clutched extra strongly.
Yeah, it's a bad one for Wokesy because I actually go into overdrive. It's not. I don't sit there quietly and just go into my shell. I actually just start chatting gibberish to him and being all nervous. And
do you remember what's the most sort of tricky airport you've landed in for cricket? Because
Wellington.
I was about to say New Zealand. There's anywhere where there's mountains.
Yeah, Johannesburg there was a bit of a ropey one there, and another place in South Africa. I can't remember. It was like down south.
Not Queenstown or Dunedin or.
Well, funny enough, Dunedin was okay, but Wellington, you go obviously because it's separate. It's on the corner of the separation of the islands, isn't it, between North and South Island? So when you fly in,
it's not called Windy Wellington for nothing.
Well, we're going in on the side of the plane, and like everybody was like dead calm. I was like, does anybody know that the plane's gone in sideways? Does anybody know this is how we're landing? Anybody else want to say anything? Should we talk to the air staff? Of course, they're in their seats. I'm thinking, should I get up? Has anybody even noticed this? And then, of course, the plane turns and lands. That was horrible. I hate
drops
that.
you.
I mean, the amount of sweat that had come out of me that day.
How are you on boats, by the way? Because
Terrible as well.
Well, I had my worst ever ferry crossing going from the south to the North Island
Yeah.
of New Zealand rather than take the plane. But the ferry was worse because a storm came in and realised when we were leaving, I think it was Picton to Nelson, Picton to Wellington. Anyway, we were leaving the port and they said that they wouldn't allow ships to go if there was a 5 metre swell. And I think at that stage it was probably about
4.9.
Well, yeah, but the problem was once we got halfway across the crossing, it went to 6.
Oh, no.
And the whole thing was like one of those pirate ship rides at the fair. Just the
Do you get seasickness?
well, I did that time. You couldn't not get seasick. I was staring at the horizon. I've like
Yeah.
got the sea bands on, and normally I would be okay, but actually there was just sort of people like prone, like lying on the floor everywhere across this.
Well, I
ship.
mentioned Jason right before he done me like a kipper in Dunedin. We went out on a boat trip. I don't play golf, so we're in thing that trip. We always have something an in thing every trip. It might be gaming one trip, the next trip it's fishing, the next trip it's golf, the next trip it's something else. So fishing, I thought, look, I'll give this a turn with the lads. You know, bond with the boys. So me, Chris Silverwood, Jason Roy, Ben Stokes, and there was one more. There was 5 were there, and the funny enough, a sea captain of a ship that goes out every day who couldn't swim, which I couldn't believe. But anyway, he had given me the armbands on my wrists, told me to look at the horizon. He'd give me peppermint to smell. I was so bad.
Ginger, should try that next time.
I actually was the guy who caught the biggest fish on my line, and he says, right, ring it in. So I was that sick. I was just sort of like pulling it in, like half cop, because I was just feeling so bad. I banged the fish off the side of the boat and it fell back in the water.
Oh,
So after all that,
all that effort.
and Jason Roy had come up to me and said, look, we're going to go into the river. You look horrendous. We'll have half an hour there, see if we can catch anything in the mouth of the river, and then we'll go back out. So we went in the mouth of the river. I says, I feel loads better now. It's much more flat. I've got no trouble now. But I don't want to go back out, mate. Like, I don't think that would be wise. You know what I'm like. I've got seasickness. I can't go. He says, Woody, it's like chicken pox. Once you've had it once, you can't get it again.
Really?
And of course, I fell for it, didn't I? Straight away. We're out within 2 minutes. I'm over the side of the boat again. Jason Roy's laughing, and I'm begging them to take me back in.
Well, you know, the only good thing about the fact that you couldn't reel the fish in and it went back into the water is that now nobody has seen how big it is. So you could just
That
stretch
is
your
true,
arms and
yeah.
say, this fish was
Yeah.
so big, and no one can
Yeah.
argue with you.
Yeah, they were writing stories about it. Apparently, it was that big. That's how big it was. But,
The other thing which you talk about in the book is how to celebrate wins. We're going to chat through for another 10 minutes here. But you don't drink alcohol,
that's right.
and that's been what, since forever, like always, as a
Yes.
teen?
Yep. I mean, the only time I think I've really been stung badly was when my best pal told me, he says, I've got you a little glass of blackcurrant there. So I knocked it back and it was sherry. It was
Ooh.
real hot and
whole
burnt.
glass.
Well, half a glass. I wasn't very happy with him that day, but he found it funny. But usually, like, if I go... I mean, this is the thing. People have this perception that they're like, oh, Woody, what are you drinking? Can I get you a drink? I'm like, oh yeah, great, thanks, water. And they're like, Woody's so funny, let's get him this. I'm like, no, seriously,
Really?
just water. And people kind of believe it, or they think, I think, what is it they say? Never trust a man that doesn't wear a belt, and never trust a man that doesn't drink, apparently. So that's always labelled me, you can't trust you if you don't drink. But
Yeah.
I've just never really needed it. I can have a good time without it. And
Yeah. Well, that
and-
comes across in the book, certainly.
yeah, well,
that
I enjoy it. And,
Yeah.
I mean, Ben Stokes, a part of the World Cup final, said before the game, look, if we win, you've got to have a beer with me. And he was on to me and on to me and on to me. And I don't like the taste of it, so I was like, oh, on to me. We won, and of course, he was the hero. So I then
Yeah.
can't say no to the hero. So I was like, right, come on, I'll have a beer with you. It took me, honestly, about 3 to 4 hours to sip. And I mean, sip this beer. I would like sip it, then I'd get to have a drink of water, sip it, drink of water. By the time I'd finished the beer, I went up to Stokes. I was like, Stokes, I finished the beer. And he was like, ugh. I was like, oh, he's not even realised.
Oh,
Like, I could have
after all
gotten
that.
away with the whole thing. So, yeah,
But
I
that's-
messed up there.
That's quite big, though, isn't it? That you can be part of a dressing room where people are either drinking or not drinking, and there's no other than that one time when he wanted you to share a beer, and
Yeah.
an incredible occasion. But there's never been any sort of peer pressure.
Oh, no,
to
not-
drink,
not
'cause
at
of
all.
course there'd be others who are not drinking
Yeah.
for other reasons or religious reasons.
Yeah, Mo and Rash. I mean, when the one day team used to win series, they would want to spray the champagne, and Mo and Rash would jump out, and the lads would let them do that out of respect. I think that was a huge thing for Mo and Rash, because they talk openly about. It seems so small, but actually to make them feel like respected and part of it. That was a big deal, and no one's ever put pressure on me to drink. They all know that I don't, and they all know that I can have fun without it. So I don't think it's a big deal for people. I think Stokesy was just World Cup final. It had to be done.
Yeah. On the spraying of the champagne, I've actually often thought, wouldn't it be better to actually have non-alcoholic champagne to spray, and then the guys could all be part of it together, or just spray something else, because it's really just the fun of spraying something, isn't it?
True.
That everyone can go a little bit silly over.
Very true.
Yeah. So what is the next little bit of period of time going to be for you then? Are you going to sort of spend a bit more time with the England team here?
Yes,
first of all?
So I've got 3 days here at the Oval, today, tomorrow, and then on Saturday I'm actually going to be signing some books here, which would be great to meet people, and hopefully they can get to read it and enjoy it. I had Phil Brown, the photographer,
Brownie,
stop me this morning and say, "You're competing with my book now." So hopefully he says that he's got a number 8, so if I can sneak in at number 7, just so I can get one over on Brownie and mention it to him. But so hanging around here, I'm going to be bowling. I've bowled today, which luckily before the weather, hoping to bowl tomorrow, even though the forecast isn't very good again. But nice to be around the coaches, and they can get to see my progress and see how I'm going. I'd worked a lot on wobble seam with the red ball with John Lewis before, and I just felt in Australia I was starting to get good at it. And since I've come back and tried it, I haven't been as good, because obviously I just started getting the hang of it, and it'll take maybe a couple more sessions to get back to that level.
So what is the key for you to successfully executing wobble seam?
I think it's having the confidence to bowl the ball as hard as you can, because I know that sounds easy, but when you're a little bit unsure, you probably don't get your wrist fully behind it, or you don't fully commit to the ball, so it might end up being a bit fuller than you want, or a bit shorter, or doesn't quite fizz out your hand how you would like. So for me, it's just committing to it again, really ripping down the back of the ball like a normal away swinger or a normal seam up delivery. It's just about committing the same, but you've just changed the seam around. So you don't need to change your action. You don't need to try and tip the ball in to nip it back in. You're just literally setting the ball off and trying to make it move one way or the other and trying to make something happen. But I'm just starting to get the hang of it in Australia, like I said, especially the left-handers. I felt I was getting much better at it. So it'll take a little bit of time, but I'm confident I can get that.
And that's going to be pretty important for pitches in Pakistan.
Well, reverse swing I think will be important there, because hopefully if the pitches are abrasive and stuff, they can get that tail, and that's what then make it a little bit more deadly. Any movement, I mean, bowling quick is great and stuff, but the amount of lads now that they have bowling machines, dog sticks, where it can be fast. So lads are used to playing fast bowling. I think the key is to try and get the ball moving as well. If the ball can move, then it becomes a bit more deadly.
Yeah, a bit of sideways movement. Woody, it's been really nice to chat with you and to hear more about the book. So we're signing copies here, and then people can buy it as well. Still pretty dismal scenes here at the Oval with the covers on and the floodlights on and everything as well. Are you looking forward to Pakistan, just briefly? I mean, I was on the tour in 2005 when England were there for test matches, and the sort of the welcome, the hospitality was unbelievable.
Yeah, I don't know what to expect, really. I've never been to Pakistan, so it's exciting to go somewhere new. Obviously, I've been to India, and the rivalry between India and Pakistan in terms of cricket, so I'm sure that the Pakistan fans will be just as up for it when we go there, and hoping that we can keep, hopefully for us, we can keep them quiet and get a couple of wins.
I don't know whether you get any free time there, because tours are too busy these days. If you do, make sure that you do a team trip to the Wagah border. The India-Pakistan border, most elaborate border closing ceremony you'll ever see, where the guards will sort of try to out-pomp each other.
Right.
It's quite something.
Right.
It's quite something.
Brilliant.
But yeah, best of luck with that. But we'll see you over the next few days.
Thank you, Ollie.
Yeah, as well. Mark Wood, his book is The Wood Life, which is coming out imminently. It's a lot of fun.